Hey guys, so welcome back again for our second segment with our second author, Rob Kenner, the author of The Marathon Don't Stop, The Life and Times of the Late Great Nipsey Hussle.
The Marathon Don't Stop is a compelling biography about Nipsey Hussle. It takes you on the journey of his beginnings to becoming a Grammy-winning artist, and just him being a pillar in his community. So we're really excited to talk to Rob about his journey writing the book and his experience with Nipsey Hussle himself. So welcome to the stage, Rob Kenner. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Hello, Rob. Oh, your mic.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well and blessed.
Yes, amen. How you feeling?
I'm just, enjoying this evening so much. And shout out to Samsung for the Times Square billboard look. That was kind of major. Felt like something I wish my late mom and dad could have seen, but I think they're looking down.
They're looking down on you. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. So before we start, I just wanted to give a little background information on Rob Kenner for those of you that may not know this amazing man. So Rob Kenner is the founding editor of Vibe magazine, an entertainment publication founded by David Salzman and Quincy Jones. Some of his most memorable feature stories include icons such as Tupac and Barack Obama, if you guys know that guy as well. His writing has also appeared in media outlets such as Complex and Genius. He is also credited with producing documentaries on De La Soul and Nas. So, reintroducing Rob Kenner.
So
Thank you all very much. And I was just one of the founding editors of Vibe. I didn't run the whole place.
Okay.
It was nice to be part of Quincy's starting team.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So we'll start with our first question. What was your favorite thing to learn about Nipsey during the research process of writing his biography?
So I think during the writing of the biography, the thing that I learned the most was how much Nipsey touched everyone around him. And that's not only the people who were like in business with him or the artists that signed with him to All Money In, but I'm talking about like kids that went to school across the street from the parking lot where he was selling the mixtapes. And, this was like, I spoke with a student who was part of a gifted program at this school, and not the sort of person whose parents wanted him to associate with Rolling 60s Kingpin, but as a matter of fact, Nip was like a guiding light for every student in that school. They all were aware of his determination, his work ethic, and his music, and all of the graduates of that school said that they were going to do their own thing. They were going to start businesses. They weren't going to go for corporate jobs. They were going to take inspiration. And even tonight I've spoken with people who work here in the Samsung space and, who were touched in some way by the music, the movement. His work transcends music. Obviously, he's a thought leader, an activist, just a model in so many ways for so many different people. And that's what I learned while writing the book.
It's amazing.
Definitely. So, how has Nipsey's own marathon impacted you personally?
I finished the book. That was, I had the voice of like the greatest coach in my ears every night, and Amanda was here talking about like time management and self-discipline and things that, some people would say are not my strongest suits, but, I have a different way of working, and it took me a long time to finish the book. My publisher was mad at me during the process because I was like, it's not ready. A lot of people gonna read this. It's gotta be right. Can't rush the thing. And so, the marathon is about the ultimate test of endurance, not just running. I haven't actually run a New York Marathon, but
Neither have I.
yeah, there's a marathon of just having your own pace for whatever your chosen endeavor is, and believing that if you find your pace and you stick to it, you will cross that line. And that was the reason I was able to finish the book.
And if you haven't read the book, it's very detailed. It gives you so much information on Nipsey Hussle, where he grew up. So it'll be a great read if you haven't read it as yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What made you want to write this biography?
I felt a responsibility to write Nipsey's story, and it had to do with just being fortunate enough to meet him at the early stage of his career. I was, as you mentioned, at Vibe magazine. I was there from day one till the last day of the magazine's publishing. So for 17 years, I was at Vibe. And almost at the end of Vibe's print run in 2009, this unknown LA rapper came to our office to play his mixtape. And, I'm old enough to remember who Nipsey Russell was, but I'd never heard of Nipsey Hussle. And everybody who was in the room that day remembers this man. He walked in and he just had this electricity about him, and just a presence and a focus. And, this is before the music was played. He was, the braids were immaculate, the chain was shiny, but, his gaze when he shook your hand, he was just very focused, and he spoke with everybody in the room about different things. Our fashion editor was born in Africa, and he spoke about his dad coming from East Africa, and he was just a really personable, impressive human being. And then he pressed play, and the music was so incredible. Bullets Ain't Got No Name mixtape Volume 2 has the Hustle in the House single that was like his first BET hit, but it had like him freestyling over Dre beats and things that you can't like fake it. You're rapping over gin and juice. You have to come correct. And if you haven't listened to that mixtape, you should go listen to it. So we were just really impressed. And at the end of that meeting, I said to him, we're gonna try to shine a light on you. Just keep doing what you're doing. And he got his page in Vibe, which was his goal. And then within a few months, Vibe was out of business. But I'm happy that we were able to do that. And Vibe continues now as a digital thing, but for a while there, it was not happening. So I followed Nipsey's trajectory over time. Just last month, October, was 10 years since the historic Crenshaw tape, which you may remember was the first mixtape sold for $100 a copy. This was at a time when music was free downloads, and the whole music industry was freaking out about digital downloads. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna monetize music? And Nipsey was the genius who came up with the idea that he had given so much free music to his fan base that he could actually monetize that love, that connection that he had with his, hardcore supporters. And so, people thought he was crazy. And he intended for them to think he was crazy. He read it in a book, actually. And
Contagious.
yeah, exactly. And, again, shout out to you guys for celebrating books in this sexy environment. It's really great. I think Nipsey would be like front row at this thing.
He's right here.
Yeah, right. And also, I think Nipsey would appreciate your hustle that, we met on a Zoom call during the pandemic. You were doing like a Zoom book club, which is not the Samsung store, so you've definitely had a good come up. But I followed Nipsey's journey, and the thing that sealed the deal was when Victory Lap came out, the debut album. I was able to speak with him for over an hour. One of the first interviews he did when he came to New York a few days after the album dropped. And the conversation was so mind-blowing. He was just so eloquent on so many different topics. It blew my mind just as a creator. He said that the rules of the game were not made by creators. They were made by business people who understood how to exploit creators. And, basically, they know that artists just make art because they love to do it and they kind of have to do it. And I say they, like the business people, are aware that the audience is consuming great art because they need it in their life. And so there's this electric connection that someone long ago said, well, if we can get in between that exchange, which is a pure soul connection, we can make a lot of money. And that's how the rules of the creative economy were really written. And they're not for the benefit of either of the people that really care about this stuff. So are we gonna do videos here?
At the end.
This video is really on that topic. I don't know if you wanna do just the interview. So the interview around Victory Lap was what made me say I have to write a book, because it was over an hour we talked, and it was cut down to a 5-minute YouTube clip. And I was like, this is not doing this man justice, and so I have to start putting it down, putting the rest of the story together. And, you know, I was hard at work on the book when, you know, the tragedy took place the following year. So this part of the interview hasn't come out, I've never shown this clip before, so I don't know if you wanna, do you wanna do this? Can we do this real quick? It's kind of, you know, it's relevant to what we're talking about. This is a little game from Nip about the creative economy. It's video clip number 1, if you can fire it up.
They're gonna cue it up.
Black owners in this game are powerful racists.
The value is created in content. So when I think of us as hip hop artists, we create content, but we don't have a wide product line. You go to Disneyland, they got tons of products, ears and all, at Disney, Mickey, everything. And so that's the vision behind the Marathon store.
Well, that's one thing I respect about you. You always inspire and educate everybody, not just make moves for yourself.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I think that's like the game free, man. You know what I'm saying? I ain't outside giving out jewelry or dropping off bags of money on people, but I'm giving out game for free. And as a young person growing up, that's all I expected. If you know something, bro, and you figured it out, I'm not gonna be a threat if you just give me the game. You know what I'm saying? Just give me you don't gotta give me the secrets, just give me the game. And I'll do the rest. Just point me in the direction. You know what I mean? Because if not, it's like, it's a form of like hating almost, or insecurity. Man, the best hustler win. You know, if you secure in how you hustle, you don't have to hide the game, man. You're gonna wake up every morning on your job, you're gonna be good. That's how I feel.
And that's what that victory lap's all about.
That part right there. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Dope interview, man. Yeah, that was dope. You on your shit.
So,
Yes.
shameless self-plug, but if Nipsey says it was a dope interview, I gotta share that with y'all. But that was really the motivation behind the book, is like the game, he wanted to share the game. You know, he wanted to pass on the insights of how to hack the system as a creator if you're really trying to do something with integrity and not just sell out and pander to the lowest common denominator to do something real. You actually have to fight the system to get that out. And that's what I wanted to, you know, pass along. And of course, with his tragic passing, it added another layer of urgency and, you know, difficulty, of course, just emotionally. You know, nobody who loves Nip is ever going to get over that, much less his family and loved ones, you know. But the mission continues, the marathon continues, and so, you know, the marathon don't stop.
Absolutely. Sorry, that kind of got me a little emotional. But what was your favorite Nipsey Hussle song and why? I know I have a lot. I would think in the privacy of my own home, I would consider myself like a aspiring gangster rapper, I guess you would say. So
It's good you can get that out of your system.
yeah. So what's your favorite Hustle song?
I mean, you know, the whole Victory Lap is one body of work that you can't really skip any tracks. And I go back to Double Up a lot just because I love the vibe of that song. But I've been listening to the Crenshaw album a lot, or the mixtape a lot since the anniversary. And I'm wearing a shirt called Face the World. It's a marathon clothing shirt. But that song on Crenshaw is an amazing song, and it's just talking like all his greatest work about the reality of life. That's the first thing he says, this your life, you can play with it. You made your bed, you're going to lay in it, do your thing, just be safe with it, and it goes on from there. But I go back to that one a lot. It's like a great soul sample and dope record.
Yeah, awesome.
I like Mark My Words with Rick Ross. I've been listening to it all week. It's really good.
Going for the deep cuts.
Yeah.
There's another good one that he did with Rick Ross called The Weather, which is
I don't think I heard that one.
him and Cuzzy Capone. Now, when you're writing a book about someone as monumental as Nipsey Hussle, you can't leave any stone unturned. And one of the things I wanted to make sure was to speak with as many of his like real inner circle as possible. So it wasn't like any journalist knows you don't just do the main interview, you do what is called secondary interviews, but those are the most important sometimes because you don't always see your full self, right? And so the person that is the focus doesn't see themselves in 360 degrees. You got to talk to the people around them. And Cuzzy Capone was Nip's OG in a way from the neighborhood. And, you know, he's a rapper, an amazing rapper who was rapping way before Nip got on. You know, he looked up to Cuzzy as a youngster, both in street things and in music things. And Cuzzy became such a blessing to me to be able to gain, you know, his knowledge of Nip, but just of life. And his verse on The Weather with Nip and Rick Ross, you got to listen to that song also. Shout out to Cuzzy anywhere you are at right now.
What was one of your favorite stories to edit for Vibe?
Well, the Obama cover was not only one that I edited, but it was one that I fought for. You know, Vibe magazine came after other rap magazines were all doing their thing. Like The Source was doing great work and rap pages in the West Coast, but Quincy wanted Vibe to be hip hop broadly defined, not just rap music, but, you know, politics, fashion, film, sports, you know, R&B, reggae, you know, the whole wave of just lifting black music and culture and all the people that love it to the proper place at the center of, you know, pop culture, because it actually, at that time, was a crazy idea. I mean, we've just gone through Hip Hop 50, and we've seen hip hop completely dominate popular culture, but in 1992, when Vibe was coming out, there were people who worked at Time Inc. that were saying, like, do hip hop fans actually read? Like, do they, you know?
Wow.
And so it was a radical thing to, you know, and it took a Quincy Jones to kick in the door and make that even possible. And so to me, when we saw that this senator from Illinois was like really making waves, and he seemed like not only, you know, he was talking different for a politician, but he was also seemed like a cool person, and it just seemed like, yeah, maybe we should, you know. So I fought for that, and we had a thing every September called the Juice issue, and you know, it was a important issue. The September issue of any magazine is like a big, you know, business decision what's going to be on the cover, and it was a bit of a struggle to get that Obama cover to happen, but shout out to Danielle Smith. She, you know, saw the vision, and, you know, we did that, and Vibe was the first magazine to endorse Obama for president. And, you know,
Shout out to Vibe.
he remembered because he wrote a letter to the readers of Vibe for the November issue when he was running, and we did a second Obama cover. And I will say that Vibe changed American culture, I think, is no question, you know. So it's not an applause line, you don't have to, but it was a big deal. So I was proud of that. I felt like we were, you know, everything that we did was important. People cared a lot about Vibe. This is before Instagram. This is before, you know, you couldn't see a proper photo shoot with even like someone like Whitney Houston, like, you know, to have like a really cool photo shoot with her was a big deal. And so, you know, Vibe was important. I'm proud of I would have stayed at Vibe forever if it was still in business. It was an amazing place to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, and as we all know, this year is the 50th year of hip hop. Happy birthday, hip hop, right? What inspires you most about hip hop?
Just the audacity, the anything is possible, you know, no barrier cannot be overcome, you know, just the absolute power of hip hop. Today, by the way, is a great day in hip hop. November 9th, 1993 was the Wu-Tang Clan first album, 36 Chambers, and the Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders, both came out 30 years ago today. So,
Wow.
you know, these albums are now like classics that the whole world recognizes. But, you know, Wu-Tang Clan, when it first came out, was like, what is this? Like, it's like somebody dragged some dusty crates from the basement and put them out on a major label.
Yeah.
And actually, Vibe, when we were, you know, starting Vibe, we were in the same building as Loud Records and Violator Management. So we would see the artists in the elevator. You know, this was a time when you couldn't just say whatever in an article because, you know, it wasn't like you just put it on Instagram and then hide your phone. And, you know, like you're going to see the artist at the party, in the elevator, wherever it is. So you had to be able to stand behind what you wrote. And it mattered a lot to people. Like they're, you know, hip hop is not only entertainment, right? It's a means of expression, but it's also a means of like economic empowerment for people that don't have a ton of options for that. And so their album is a big deal to the artist, their team, their family, their neighborhood. And so you don't just like carelessly review that, you know? And I think living through that era of hip hop journalism prepared me well to approach a Nipsey Hussle project because you can't just go into it like I'm just gonna do a biography on this guy. You know, it was you had to proceed with some level of respect, and you know, I'm really grateful that the respect was given back to me, and you know, we were able to complete the mission.
Yeah, you did a great job with it. But speaking of completing the mission, I guess how would you say that we continue the marathon?
There's so many people doing it. I was having this conversation with one of the guys that works here. There he is. Remind me your name. Brandon from Fresno. But we were talking about how there's so many artists that are inspired by him, but there's nobody that can carry all the different aspects that Nip was doing at the same time. People take different pieces of his legacy, right? And so there's an artist named Russell from Vallejo who's great if you don't know his movement. He's doing a thing. So I mentioned about the Crenshaw tape. That $100 mixtape was a groundbreaking idea for marketing music. Nipsey called that thing Proud to Pay because the idea was I will be proud to have been one of those people that showed up at the pop-up shop and bought the $100 tape because only 1,000 copies are available, and so I'll be proud to pay. So that concept of being like a day one supporter, Russell has turned into a restaurant thing. He's feeding the community in Vallejo and has made an arrangement with this restaurant where people can come and they pay whatever they want and they get a meal.
Wow.
And, you know, so that's like one aspect of the marathon. You know, it's just anybody that is on the same vibration that we're not just here on this earth to like get something for ourselves and like shut out the rest of the world. Like we all make this thing. We all, you know, we survive as a human race or we destroy each other. It's like one or the other. There's no, you know, there's no alternative. So I think Nip saw that. He, you know, when I look at the craziness going on in the world, like Nip was the only person who was really trying to like unite neighborhoods that weren't supposed to get along. Like his whole team was made up of people from neighborhoods that weren't supposed to get along. And he deliberately, intentionally did that to like break down these barriers and kind of return these, you know, what's called gangs back to the original intention of like self-defense for the neighborhood and like, you know, something more akin to what the Panthers were doing. And so, you know, for Nip right now, would, you know, we see like Palestine and Israel to take one example. seems so impossible for any unity to come out of that situation. But like a Nipsey Hussle gives you hope to even begin to comprehend that that could, you know, come about. So
Possible, yeah.
yeah.
So I guess our last question is going to be, do you have any advice for anyone in the audience that's trying to navigate the entertainment industry?
Well, you just soaked up some game from Nip directly on that screen. Yeah, the game is changing constantly. I think at this moment with streaming, like there is actually a curator from Tidal in the building right now. I'm not going to blow up her spot, but shout out to Reshma B. But there is a whole new game with streaming, and you know, but one thing that hasn't changed is like, well, A Tribe Called Quest had that song where they said industry rule number 4080. Do y'all know what it is? Yes, that's right. Record company people are shady.
Paul.
With no disrespect intended, but it is what it is. So, you know, the rules of the game were not made for you to thrive. And so if you can start your own movement like La Russell, or like there's an artist named Russ who's been doing some really clever things with financing, like taking out bank loans to finance his project because he can get a better rate of return than paying off the royalties, you know, paying off the advance from a record label. You know, the game is super dirty. And I was just on a call today speaking with somebody that's going through old contracts, and we could talk for an hour, but like, one thing I have heard, if you know old school rappers that signed a contract around the early 90s, there's a thing you can actually redo your contract right now. There's some clause, but it's only like for a year or two. Like there's a moving window, so I don't know, look into it. But my advice is proceed with caution, do it because you love it, and like Nip was saying up there, diversify your whole movement. Like Cooley Ranks here is a good friend of mine. He's an artist, independent artist. I met him as a reggae and dancehall artist. He's now doing like ska, ragacore, right? So it's like a mixture of ska, dancehall, and like hard like punk thrash rock. And he's got his own lane, and his merch line is popping. He's wearing the Ska Tings gear right now. He's like a young Nipsey Hussle doing it in a whole different category, you know? Very positive person that could have gone another way. You walked that road, and you know, you're here today as a shining example of what is possible in the music business. So shout out to Cooley Ranks.
So we have time for any questions.
Is there a mic for? All right.
Did the title come before or after he passed away?
Say it one more time.
Did the title, The Marathon Don't Stop, come before or after Nipsey?
The title comes from a song, so The Marathon Continues was a slogan. It was the title of a mixtape that that Nip had put out. He had the Marathon tape, then The Marathon Continues, and then Crenshaw was the conclusion of that. But on The Marathon Continues, the first track is called Love, with a question mark at the end. And in that, he says, tell my brothers, rest in peace, the marathon don't stop. And so he was reflecting on people he had lost and saying that despite these tragedies, we will not be deterred from reaching our destination. So he was on that before, you know, what happened.
Any other questions? Good. What was that?
Question stage left.
First, Rob, congratulations, brother.
Thank you so much.
I love the work that you've done. So, and
Appreciate
ladies, congratulations. I had a question. I don't know if you can answer this in the short time we have. What was your origin story? Like, obviously you have a passion for hip hop.
Man, that's a TED Talk.
That's a TED Talk. But if you could quickly just give us an idea of what inspired you to get into this.
I wanted to write about music. I love music. My earliest memory is putting a needle on a turntable when I was a kid. I used to steal my big brother's records and mess them up, and you know, I was a menace to his record collection. But I didn't get a job at Rolling Stone. Jan Wenner didn't want it, but I found out now he's a racist. So you know, he recently blew up his own spot. If y'all saw that interview. And that's why Vibe was created. That's why Quincy needed to create Vibe, because the music that influenced the people on the cover of a Rolling Stone was being marginalized, you know? So I couldn't get on at Rolling Stone. Then I was working at an art magazine, and I was DJing and working at a reggae record shop on the weekends. And then I heard that Quincy was starting a magazine. I said, let me look into that. And so here I am.
That's awesome. Okay.
One more.
One more, okay.
And then we can
All right.
chat after or whatever.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rob. You're so sincere and genuine and warm. You know,
Thank you.
You're like the anti-industry. So really quickly, so the day, so I'm an educator, a lot of other things, but primarily an educator. So the day that Nipsey died, I was working at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. And it's a junior scholars program, and those kids that range from 6th grade through 12th grade were so crestfallen. It was like, whew, it's like the wind, the world, everything was taken out of them. So I'm thinking about your book and the marathon Don't Stop. So what is the impact that you have seen from your book, or, I mean, I can talk a little bit about New York, but like where he's from. Is there still gang activity? Are people still holding him up, but then doing the things that he said not to do? Like, what is it? You know, like Martin Luther King, but you still have racism. So, so what is the impact of your book and his movement? Because the marathon don't stop.
Okay, well, I would say, first of all, like one of the things that I've been really pleased about the impact of the book is that people who had no idea who Nipsey was had a chance to familiarize themselves, because he intentionally did not seek to be the most famous person in the world. He knew that to do that, you had to water your thing down. So he wanted to do pure, uncut, raw, real to the people that cared about that, and he served them. And that's why he was able to do like the $100 mixtape, you know. But so people that said, oh, who is this guy who got killed and he had a memorial at the Staples Center, and you know, Michael Jackson had a memorial there, and Kobe Bryant, but who's this other guy? So for people like that, it was a useful resource, I think, for them to familiarize themselves. And some of you here may have the same thing. It's no shame, you know. Nip was speaking to who he was speaking to at the time, and he was about to go wide when they, you know, dimmed his light. But I think the impact, what's going on in the neighborhood is a whole other conversation, but I think that I just want to say again that, like, as an American white kid from, you know, not Crenshaw and Slauson, not from South Bronx, I came into hip-hop as someone that loved it and was invited in, and I feel privileged to be able to, you know, still do what I do. I was programmed with a certain understanding of what gang meant, what gangster meant, what all that stuff meant. You learned it from movies, you learned it from rap videos sometimes. But I don't think that, like, when you say is there still gang activity, there's definitely, you know, every neighborhood has its own organization, and the book breaks that down. It's a history of America, it's a history of Los Angeles, it's a history of, you know, where those organizations came from. And, you know, there's a film that I recommend called Bastards of the Party. If you haven't seen that documentary, you should check it out. But it's a lot about how, you know, the feds broke up, they targeted the Panthers, they broke them up, scattered them, and you know, Crips and Bloods grew in the ashes of that. And so, you know, Nip saw that and was trying to kind of redirect the energy. And so, you know, I just always avoid, like, falling into the old, you know, habits of thought about these topics. So, but yeah, Nip's movement continues, and I think we are having a little surprise now.
Yes, everyone gets a copy
Is that what's
of the
happening?
Marathon
All right.
Don't Stop. Okay. Oh, we have one more question.
Hi, sorry. I'm Nadine. And
Hey, and you have a Puma suit on, which Nip did a Puma collab. So these are from his Puma collab also, the shoes.
I love it. So I'm a huge Nipsey Hussle fan, and I've been a fan since Mailbox Money.
Okay.
So
$1,000 tape. Oh,
Yeah.
That was the one he stepped up to 1,000.
Right. My favorite Nipsey song is called Effortless, but that's just like
Says what?
Effortless.
Oh, okay. All right.
But you know, in college, I listened to him a lot, so it got me through a lot of things into a place where I am right now, and I learned a lot about myself. Right. That's the first thing, right? And I dreamt a lot, but he gave me that motivation, and I love how you said his voice was a coach for you. It was like a coach, right? Throughout this whole process. And I feel like it's the same thing for me. And it's funny that, you know, we're all here. It feels like a full circle moment. And I actually am in the industry and I work at a record label. So I guess one of the things that I learned about myself was just like putting creatives first. You know, and of course we have a bad rap and people are going to talk about record labels, but I take pride in putting the creatives first, and we don't try to make an artist something that they're not. And that's what I learned through that and through him. So my question for you is, being that you wrote this book and it's also a journey for you, what did you learn about yourself?
That's a good one.
That's a good one. I was speaking with Amanda about this, the novelist who was on here before, because she was talking about, you know, she would give a few chapters to her editor, and then they would read them, and then, you know, or the agent or whoever, you know. And what I learned about myself is that I am very protective of my words. Like, I can't do a messy draft and just turn it in because it's time to turn it in. Like, I really obsessively perfect it and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. So I really had to confront that, and I learned that in a real way. Like, you know, it was, and also the expectations around this book. I knew that people care so much. I care so much about Nip, and his following is like nothing else that I've seen really in this lifetime. So I was very, you know, obsessed with getting it right, and that's what I learned. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, I guess, but it's difficult.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming out, and I hope you enjoyed this.
Yes.
And if you didn't get a tote bag, let us know. We
have extras.
some. Yes.
And all the books, I signed them, but if you want to, you know,
Yes.
Yeah,
personal
come up
tag,
and chat with
come
Rob
up.
if
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
you guys want to.
And
But
thank
thanks
you,
again,
Rob, and
guys.
thank you, Amanda.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Samsung.
Yes, thank you,
And
Samson.
Michelle and Shalika, hats off to you. It's a
Oh,
Thank you.
great event.
Thank you.